My name is Emily. I am 21 years old, and I live with my mother in a small house at the edge of town. My father passed away when I was 16, and since then, it has just been the two of us. My mother is a strong woman, the kind who hides her pain behind a quiet smile. She works hard, takes care of everything, and never complains. But I could always see the loneliness in her eyes. Then one day, everything began to change. My mother met a man named John. He was polite, calm, and gentle. He spoke with kindness and always brought flowers when he came to visit. I remember the first time I saw her laugh again because of him. It had been so long since that sound filled our home. For the first time in years, our dinners were full of warmth and conversation. John quickly became a part of our lives. He helped around the house, told funny stories, and treated my mother with respect. I liked him. I believed he truly cared for her. I felt happy seeing her happy again. It seemed like our family was healing, like a new beginning after years of sadness. But sometimes, new beginnings hide the storms that follow. At first, life with John felt peaceful and balanced. He moved into our home a few months after he and my mother decided to get married. He treated her with kindness and care, always helping with small things around the house. He cooked dinner sometimes, fixed broken shelves, and always made sure the garden looked beautiful. My mother seemed happier than I had ever seen her. She smiled more, laughed more, and even started singing while doing the dishes. I thought he was good for her, and I was grateful. John was also friendly to me. He asked about my classes at the university, helped me fix my old car, and sometimes brought home my favorite chocolate. At the dinner table, he told stories that made us laugh. He seemed like the perfect man, someone who loved my mother and accepted me like his own daughter. But as time passed, something began to change. John started paying too much attention to me. His compliments were no longer simple or harmless. He told me I looked beautiful too often, that my smile reminded him of something he missed in life. I felt uncomfortable but didn't know what to say. I convinced myself it was just his way of being kind. Still, deep inside, a quiet unease began to grow, like a shadow I didn't want to see. It happened one quiet night. My mother had gone away for a few days on a work trip. The house felt unusually silent without her. I was in my room reading when I heard a soft knock on my door. It was John. I thought maybe he needed something, so I opened the door slightly. But the look in his eyes was different. He wasn't smiling politely as he usually did. His expression was serious, almost desperate. He stepped closer and said quietly, "Emily, I need to tell you something. I love you." I froze. I didn't understand what he meant. I laughed nervously and said, "You mean like a father loves his daughter?" But he shook his head. "No," he said. "I mean I love you. I married your mother because I wanted to be close to you. You are the one I wanted all along." My heart started pounding. I couldn't move. I whispered, "Stop, please. This isn't right." But he kept talking, his voice soft and persuasive. "You don't understand, Emily. I think about you all the time. You make me feel alive again." I backed away, shaking my head, trying to make him leave. He sighed and said, You don't have to be afraid. I know you feel something too. I didn't. All I felt was fear. That night, after he finally left, I sat in my room crying, trembling, unsure of what to do. I couldn't tell my mother. She was happy for the first time in years. How could I destroy that? I convinced myself that maybe it was just a mistake, that he would stop. But he didn't. Over the next few weeks, John's behavior changed. He became controlling and cold. He told me that if I didn't love him back, he would leave my mother, and it would be my fault that she lost another man. He said I owed him honesty, that he had given up everything for us. I was too young, too confused, and too afraid to see how he was manipulating me. After many sleepless nights filled with guilt and fear, I made the worst mistake of my life. I believed him. I thought maybe if he divorced my mother, things would make sense again. I let him convince me that what we had was love. When my mother found out the truth, she came to my house. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. She screamed my name, called me a liar, a thief, a bad daughter. You took my husband, she shouted. I wanted to explain, to tell her I never wanted any of this, but the words wouldn't come. I could only stand there, broken, as she left me behind in tears. After John and I got married, everything I thought I knew about him disappeared. The man who once spoke softly and smiled kindly became someone I barely recognized. He stopped being gentle. His words were sharp, his tone always filled with suspicion. Every time I left the house, he wanted to know where I was going, who I was meeting, what I was doing. He checked my phone, read my messages, and accused me of lying even when I told the truth. At first, I tried to convince myself that he was just stressed, that marriage was harder than I had imagined. But as the days passed, his behavior became worse. He insulted me, called me useless, said I was stupid and weak. Sometimes, when he was angry, he said I was just like my mother, and he didn't mean it kindly. Each word felt like a knife. I started to believe that maybe I really was worthless. I stopped smiling. I stopped talking. I lived each day like a shadow of who I once was. I realized, slowly and painfully, that John never loved me. He didn't love my mother either. He loved control. He wanted to own someone, to make them smaller so he could feel powerful. What I once mistook for love was only his desire to dominate. One night, everything broke. We were arguing about something small, but his anger exploded. He shouted in my face, called me names, said I ruined his life. I felt trapped, shaking with fear. Finally, I ran out of the house barefoot, tears streaming down my face. The cold air hit my skin, and I could barely breathe. I kept running, my heart pounding, my mind screaming one question again and again: what have I done to my mother, to myself? I didn't know where else to go. My body moved on its own, and before I knew it, I was standing in front of my mother's house. The lights were off, but I knocked on the door again and again. My hands were trembling. "Mom, please," I whispered. "It's me." For a long time, there was no sound. Then finally, the door opened. My mother stood there, her face tired, her eyes swollen from tears. She looked at me but didn't speak. The silence between us was heavy, filled with everything we had both lost. I fell to my knees, crying uncontrollably. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said. "I was blind. I thought I was loved, but I was only used." My mother didn't move for a moment. Then slowly, she reached out her hand and let me in. It was the first time I had felt safe in years. My mother let me in without a word. We sat in silence for a long time. The only sound was the ticking of the old clock on the wall. I looked around and realized how much I had missed this house, the smell of tea, the warmth of the small kitchen, the quiet safety of her presence. For the first time in years, I felt something I had forgotten existed. Peace. When I finally spoke, the words came out between sobs. I told her everything, from the first night John confessed his feelings to the day I ran away from him. I expected her to scream, to tell me to leave, but she didn't. She just listened. Her eyes were full of sadness, but also something else, understanding. When I finished, she simply said, "You have suffered enough. Now, you must set yourself free." Those words became the start of my healing. I decided to leave John. When he found out, he was furious. He called me weak, said I couldn't live without him. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I had already lived my worst days. Nothing he said could break me again. The divorce took months. It was painful and exhausting, but when it was over, I felt lighter. I moved back in with my mother and started looking for work. I got a job at a small cafe, and little by little, I began to rebuild my life. One afternoon, while shopping for groceries, I saw John again. He was walking with a young woman, maybe 20 years old, holding her hand. For a moment, our eyes met. He looked startled, maybe even guilty. I just smiled softly and walked away. There was no anger left in me, only pity. I understood then that some people never change. John would keep searching for love he could control, never realizing that real love is never taken, it is given freely. I learned that love without respect is not love at all. What I thought was love was only control. Real love gives you peace, not fear. These words stayed in my heart as I began to live again. I once believed that love meant holding on, no matter how painful it became. But now I understand that sometimes the strongest kind of love is letting go, of someone, of guilt, of the past. Life does not allow us to rewrite what has been done, but it always gives us a chance to begin again. Every mistake carries a lesson, and every heartbreak hides a door to growth. I used to blame myself for everything, but I realized that pain is not meant to destroy us, it is meant to teach us who we really are. My mother and I often sit together in the garden now. The air smells of jasmine, and the evening sun paints everything in gold. We do not talk much. We do not need to. Her hand in mine says everything: forgiveness, peace, and a quiet promise to never let darkness rule our hearts again. That is how healing begins, not with forgetting, but with forgiving, and choosing to love ourselves enough to start over. If you enjoyed this story and want to keep learning English through emotional life stories, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more inspiring lessons and real-life reflections.